This is the brain work at work, the brain work of work. And it starts with the fact that most improvements in work systems end up feminizing them, making them more feminine. The reason for this is fairly obvious, that the world for thousands of years was controlled by, designed by, run by men. Most flaws in the world come from excesses of maleness. In particular, the ideology, the myth got created that men were rational and professional and women were emotional. And recent brain research discovers that men are slightly more emotional at work than women are. But the emotions of men are fighting, defeating, conquering, competing, comparing with other monkeys to be top monkey for no other reason other than being top monkey. And men lose sight entirely of serving anybody with what they do at work other than themselves. The higher they are in a hierarchy and the bigger the organization, the more psychopath they become in their use of other people for their own purposes. Um, Number two, recent brain research has found about 40 differences between the brains of men and women. And if you master the female side of this as a male, or the male side of this as a female, you come across as a super person. It isn't just that you can talk and deal with and handle both communities, but it's that you have an expanded repertoire of what you can do and get done. Uh, Number three, Kahnemann and Tversky and whole bunches of other people have documented now with replicated research 180 plus flaws in how brains think. And uh, these are flaws that are built into the hardware, it appears, and they will occur automatically all the time. They control what you notice before you control what you notice. They control how you interpret what you notice before you decide what you notice means. And so much of the freedom of thought that you think you have is not really there. And studying and learning to counter these 180 flaws in thought is a big menu for anybody, but it has enormous paybacks. Uh, Number three, the unit of intelligence is not the single person we are discovering. That a single man alone is a very dangerous leader. A single woman alone is a very dangerous, incompetent leader. That it's always a trio of a leader and two underlings or peers who advise the leader and counter the leader's known weaknesses, known by other people but not necessarily admitted or known by the leader. One of the psychopathic aspects of Anglo culture leaders is they stop listening to other people once they become the top monkey in an organization. Grint's wonderful study of leadership documents this again and again and again, that Napoleon self-destructs because when he reaches the emperor of the world status, he rewards himself by no longer listening to his generals. Um, and we can see this again and again as CEOs get to the top of organizations and immediately stop being nice and listening to other people, which was their route to the top all those earlier years. That's what they reward themselves with, and it causes them to self-destruct. Number four, there are social, our brains are essentially social, and the current structure and size of the human brain appears to be designed to handle a group of 125 to 150 people. Beyond that, we can't care and act morally and effectively take care of people. And so some organizations like W.J. Gore Company have created a maximum 200 limit to all facilities and organizations in their company. Because anything beyond 150, human brains simply can't handle, and treat them like barbarian strangers, and they don't give enough care, they don't accept inputs from them, and you get huge numbers of dysfunctions. So recognizing the social modules in your brain and operating in groups sized for the size of your brain is an interesting new key that's just now being researched. Uh, Five, it's not information and knowledge you get in your brain that makes you intelligent, although all the schools and colleges of the world stupidly do that. And there's no other word for it. It's just a stupid, lazy mistake on their part. The interface into the brain is extremely narrow and slow. It's very hard to get information into brains. But worse, the indexing of information in the brain is so bad that almost everything we learned last year we cannot now recall. Um, the recall from a lecture a week later is about 17%. Pardon me, a day later is 17%, and a week later is 7% on average. Uh, there are very unusual ways to regularize knowledge and the naming of knowledge and the ordering of knowledge, which I use and have been using for 45 years, that get beyond these limits. But for people without my tools, they are really stuck in these limits of the decay. One day later is only 17% remembered at best, and a week later only 7% remembered at best from a really good lecture. So there are tools outside of our brains which make us smart, tools which allow us to remember more than our brains can remember, the tools that make us more detailed than our brains allow us to be, and tools that index information and experiences faster, better, and more accurately than our brains do. Our personal file system, our personal library, friends who perform cognitive functions for us, our cognitive architecture, our cognitive apparel, our cognitive furniture. These mind extensions are what make us intelligent, but they're not educated in school systems. Now, I educate them, but most 99% of all professors in the world don't. And then finally, this idea that the web makes for new rules of what's intelligent. The idea that your surface area is your intelligence in a web era rather than what you can store in your brain. Well, this is partly what I said above and partly wrong. Being at the right intersections of information is not really all that powerful. It feels rich without making you powerful. And it's a common delusion of people in the web era that because they're in the right info streams flowing to them all the day, because they're bathing in all this new little bits of information, that makes them powerful. It feels rich, but it's not power. And it's creating a generation of wimps. It is rather the person who can build abstract, comprehensive, detailed, accurate maps of everything going on in those flows, their past origins, their drift and evolution into future directions, their main points distinguished from their shallow points, their enduring directions distinguished from their current fuzzy trendiness. It's the person who can think abstractly and model deeper levels of the flows and determinants and forces acting on the flows that then can predict where they're going and what they mean and what their import is, and have a reliable near future to invest in. And the people who are reacting to the flows themselves end up with an unreliable near future, so their investments go bad because they're too much affected by the flows of the moment and are not able to see them comprehensively in detail abstractly.